The ocean is vast, eternal, and merciless. For centuries, it has swallowed entire civilizations, leaving behind whispers in the tide, stories that drift from one generation to the next. But of all the tales born from the sea, one stands taller, stranger, and more haunting than the rest: the story of Atlantis. A city said to have been built by gods themselves, glittering in gold and power, only to be swallowed by the waves in a single, fateful day and night. Was Atlantis real, or was it a parable, a warning crafted by ancient philosophers? That question has gripped human imagination for over 2,000 years, and still, the ocean keeps her secrets. What if beneath the endless blue, under miles of shifting sand and forgotten trenches, the ruins of a once mighty civilization still sleep? What if marble columns, bronze statues, and paved avenues of an empire greater than Egypt or Babylon lie entombed in silence, waiting to be found? Imagine for a moment the shock of discovery, the confirmation that humanity once achieved greatness far beyond what we believed possible, only to see it erased by nature's fury. Would such a revelation change history? Would it change us? The search for Atlantis has become more than just an archaeological quest. It is a riddle, a mirror reflecting humanity's hunger for knowledge, power, and meaning. For some, Atlantis is the ultimate lost treasure, a promise of advanced technologies and wisdom forgotten. For others, it is nothing but myth, a story spun by Plato to teach philosophy. Yet the legend refuses to die. From divers who swear they have seen stone roads beneath the sea to satellites mapping strange shapes on the ocean floor, Atlantis lingers, always just beyond reach. Tonight, we step into the shadow of that mystery. The story begins with a man, the Greek philosopher Plato, writing nearly 2,400 years ago. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, Plato tells us of a mighty power that once rose from the Atlantic Ocean. Atlantis, he said, was larger than Libya and Asia combined, a land of fertile plains, mountains rich in ore, and a people whose naval power stretched beyond imagination. But this was no utopia. The Atlanteans, blessed with abundance, grew arrogant and corrupt, daring to conquer the known world. In response, the gods unleashed their wrath, and the city was lost beneath the waves in a single day and night of catastrophe. At first glance, it seems simple. Plato was using Atlantis as allegory, a cautionary tale of hubris, decadence, and divine justice. And yet, the way he described Atlantis was too vivid, too specific to be dismissed as mere fiction. He gave details, geography, architecture, the abundance of metals, the rituals of its people, even the way its capital was built with concentric rings of land and water. He claimed the story came from Egyptian priests, passed down to the Athenian statesman Solon, and then to him. If it was simply a fable, why root it in history with names, dates, and sources? The world described by Plato has haunted explorers ever since. Imagine a land where rivers flowed through fertile valleys, where elephants roamed, where copper, tin, and orichalcum, a mysterious red metal more precious than gold, gleamed in abundance. Imagine palaces plated in silver and temples covered in ivory, where kings ruled from thrones of dazzling stone. Plato claimed Atlantis had 10 kings, each ruling a portion of the land, united by law and tradition, their capital city a wonder of engineering with canals and harbors bustling with ships. Could such a place have existed in prehistory? But if Atlantis was real, when did it fall? Plato tells us it was 9,000 years before his own time, placing the destruction around 9,600 BCE. That date, strikingly, aligns with a geological period known as the Younger Dryas, when sudden climate shifts and rising seas reshaped Earth's surface. Could Atlantis have been a memory of a real civilization swallowed by those ancient cataclysms? Or was it a timeless moral lesson, crafted in narrative form? The line between myth and memory blurs, and it is in that blur that the mystery thrives. Even in the ancient world, many doubted Plato's tale. Yet others believed. Historians, priests, and adventurers repeated the story, always searching, always questioning. By the time of the Renaissance, as Europe rediscovered classical texts, the legend of Atlantis returned to life, inspiring maps, books, and voyages. Explorers whispered that the newly discovered Americas might be Atlantis reborn. Every time mankind pushed against the horizon, the city of Atlantis seemed to move just beyond it, close enough to imagine, never close enough to touch. As centuries passed, theories multiplied. Some placed Atlantis in the Mediterranean, identifying it with the volcanic island of Thera, whose eruption 3,600 years ago devastated the Minoan civilization. Others pointed to the Azores, the Caribbean, or even Antarctica beneath the ice. Each location offered fragments of truth, yet none solved the riddle. The absence of evidence only deepened the fascination. Atlantis became a symbol of human longing, for a perfect past, for hidden wisdom, for proof that our ancestors were greater than we dare to believe. And so, the hunt for Atlantis is not just about ruins, it is about us. It is about the stories we tell, the dreams we chase, and the shadows we project upon the unknown. Plato's words planted a seed, and that seed grew into one of the greatest mysteries of all time. Tonight, we follow that story to its depths. We will walk through the ruins of history, sift through myth and evidence, and dive into the ocean's dark heart. For somewhere in the silence of the deep, the truth of Atlantis waits. The waves that cover our planet hide more than 70% of Earth's surface. In those depths lie mountain ranges taller than the Alps, trenches deeper than Everest, and plains larger than entire continents. For all our satellites and submarines, the ocean remains the last great frontier. And within that frontier, Atlantis lingers like a ghost, a city that was said to master the seas themselves. Imagine, if you will, a civilization not just surviving on the ocean, but bending it to their will, carving channels, and building harbors that put even Rome to shame. Plato's account describes the Atlanteans as master engineers. Their capital, according to him, was built in a series of concentric circles, land and water alternating like ripples in a pond, all connected by bridges and guarded by towers. The central island, where the royal palace stood, gleamed with metals and stone that caught the sunlight in dazzling colors. Around it stretched gardens, temples, and barracks, each ring alive with activity. It was a city designed not only for function, but for power, every line carved into stone a declaration of supremacy. But the power of Atlantis was not confined to stone and metal. Plato wrote that their navy was unmatched, fleets of triremes and galleys sailing beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, into the open Atlantic. They conquered lands, subdued nations, and brought wealth back to their great city. Their empire stretched across islands and continents, a maritime power unrivaled. Yet this vast strength was both their glory and their undoing. From the hunger to expand, they angered both gods and men. The Athenians, according to Plato, were the ones who stood against them. In a time long before recorded Greek history, Athens fought Atlantis in a titanic war. Against all odds, the smaller city resisted, halting the Atlantean advance. For Plato, this was no coincidence. It was moral destiny. The pure, disciplined Athenians triumphed over the decadent, greedy Atlanteans. But if Athens delivered their defeat, the gods delivered their destruction. For no sooner had the war ended than Atlantis, in a single day and night, was swallowed by earthquakes, floods, and fire, leaving nothing but sea. For many, this story was allegory, Plato teaching through myth. But the way he described Atlantis's fall resonates with geological catastrophe. Earthquakes and floods, cities swallowed in an instant. These were not unknown to the Mediterranean world. The eruption of Thera, centuries later, would devastate the Minoans. Entire coastlines have risen and fallen. What if Atlantis, too, was a memory of a real disaster, magnified by centuries of retelling? Explorers of the Renaissance and Enlightenment pored over these details. Some believed Atlantis was in the Azores, those lonely islands rising from the mid-Atlantic ridge. Others thought the Caribbean, with its shallow, turquoise waters and hidden reefs, might conceal the ruins. With every new world discovered, Atlantis seemed to be waiting just around the corner. It was as if the city itself was teasing humanity, pulling them across the oceans, urging them to look but never touch. By the 19th century, Atlantis had ignited into full cultural obsession. The rise of archaeology, the discovery of Troy, once thought a myth, suddenly made Atlantis seem possible. Writers like Ignatius Donnelly declared it the true cradle of civilization, the mother culture that spread pyramids, astronomy, and language across the globe. In his vision, Atlantis was not merely lost. It was the origin of all we know, its children scattered after the flood to Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Americas. The theory was bold, seductive, and impossible to prove, yet it fueled imaginations across the world. But obsession can cut two ways. For every scholar searching rationally, there were mystics and dreamers who claimed visions of Atlantis in their dreams. The psychic Edgar Cayce, in the early 20th century, declared that Atlantis had advanced technology, even flying machines powered by crystals, and that its survivors seeded civilizations worldwide. Though historians dismissed these ideas, they burrowed into popular culture. Soon Atlantis was not just a lost city. It was a symbol of hidden wisdom, of humanity's forgotten golden age. And yet, beneath the fantasies, there remains an uncomfortable possibility. Around 12,000 years ago, as the Ice Age ended, the seas rose nearly 400 feet. Entire landmasses vanished. Doggerland, once connecting Britain to Europe, sank beneath the North Sea. Coastlines shifted, rivers flooded, and human memory carried the scars. Could Atlantis simply be one of those lands, remembered in fragments, passed down until Plato captured it? The ocean floor holds no shortage of candidates. Stone-like structures off Japan's Yonaguni Island, strange patterns in the Caribbean seabed, ruins near Spain's coast. All have been proposed, all remain unconfirmed. And so, the story builds. From Plato's parchment to modern sonar scans, Atlantis has always been just out of reach. Each discovery offers hope. Each failure deepens the riddle. It is as if the city itself resists being found, as if the ocean guards it jealously. But what if, just once, the right clue appeared? A fragment of stone, a carving, a road where no road should be? What if, against all odds, the city rises again, not from the waves, but from memory into fact? The build-up crescendos here. A lost empire, too specific to dismiss, too elusive to confirm. Scholars argue, adventurers dive, satellites scan, yet the mystery remains unsolved. Plato's words hang over us like a riddle carved into the sea itself. In a single day and night, Atlantis disappeared. Was it allegory? Was it memory? Or was it something more, something waiting in the dark? The line between fable and fact thins, and we are left staring into the abyss, where the next clue could change history forever. The night began like any other in the shining capital of Atlantis. The streets glowed with firelight, torches flickering on the white marble colonnades, merchants closing their stalls, children chasing each other through the echo of stone courtyards. The harbors were alive with ships returning from distant voyages, their hulls heavy with spices, metals, and ivory. Priests climbed the steps of the great temple, chanting hymns to Poseidon, the god said to have fathered their line. Few could imagine that this night would be their last, that before dawn, the city would vanish forever. Far out at sea, the earth groaned. A deep vibration rolled through the ocean, so low it was almost inaudible, like the growl of a slumbering beast. Fishermen on their small boats felt it first, the sudden rocking of waves with no wind, the eerie silence of seabirds rising in panic. Beneath them, tectonic plates shifted violently, pressure built for millennia releasing in an instant. The gods were not whispering anymore. They were roaring. Back in the city, animals sensed it. Horses reared in their stables. Elephants trumpeted in the fields. Dogs barked wildly in the night air. The priests fell silent mid-chant, the marble floor beneath them trembling as if alive. Then the first shock came, an earthquake so violent that towers toppled like children's toys. Walls cracked open, fountains burst into floods, and screams tore through the once proud streets. The people of Atlantis looked to the sky, but no help came. Only fire, only thunder. At the harbor, the sea pulled back. Ships that had been floating moments earlier now sat tilted on exposed sand, fish flopping helplessly on the ground. A silence heavier than death filled the air. Those who had seen such things before knew what was coming. Mothers screamed for their children. Sailors cut their ropes. Priests begged the gods for mercy. Then, with a sound like the sky itself shattering, the ocean returned, not as water, but as a wall. The waves struck with fury. Ships shattered like driftwood, buildings folded under the crushing weight, entire districts erased in a heartbeat. People were lifted, spun, and broken against stone and timber. Fire met water as oil lamps burst, turning waves into rolling sheets of flame. The sound was indescribable, a mixture of screaming, thunder, and grinding stone as the city was ripped apart. Atlantis, once master of the seas, was being devoured by them. But the gods were not finished. As water receded, fire burst forth. Volcanoes hidden beneath the sea erupted in tandem. Fountains of molten rock shooting skyward, painting the night in blood-red light. Ash fell like snow, covering survivors who stumbled blindly through ruins. The air itself became poison, choking lungs and burning skin. In the chaos, families clung together, kings and slaves alike, united in terror as their world ended. The Palace of the Kings was the last to fall. Built on the central island, surrounded by bridges and canals, it had stood for centuries as a symbol of order and dominion. Now its gilded walls cracked, its towers leaned, its foundation shook as though cursed. Inside, rulers shouted orders drowned by the earth's roar. Marble statues toppled, their faces shattering into dust. The throne room where kings had once ruled the seas crumbled into darkness, swallowed without ceremony. And then silence. Not the silence of peace, but of obliteration. When dawn broke, nothing remained. Where once there had been palaces, harbors, and avenues, now there was only ocean. The sea stretched unbroken to the horizon, calm as glass, as if mocking the memory of what it had consumed. Atlantis was gone, erased in a single night. But the echoes remained, in memory, in whispers, in myth. Yet, even in destruction, the legend lived on. Survivors, or so some claimed, escaped in ships, carrying fragments of their knowledge to new lands. Egypt, Mesopotamia, even the Americas bore traces of their influence, say believers. The story passed from tongue to tongue, father to child, until it reached the ears of Egyptian priests, and finally, Plato. What was lost in the sea became immortal in story. A warning, a memory, perhaps both. The destruction of Atlantis is more than a disaster. It is a symbol. Was it divine punishment for arrogance? Was it a natural catastrophe magnified by myth? Or was it something else, something too ancient, too powerful for us to understand? Whatever the truth, the image lingers. A golden city swallowed in a single night, its ruins entombed beneath endless waves. And as long as the ocean hides her secrets, the mystery of Atlantis will never die. The ocean covers her secrets well. When Atlantis sank, whether in myth or in truth, the sea became its tomb, and the silence of the deep is nearly impossible to break. Yet, humanity has never stopped trying. For centuries, men and women have scoured the earth for traces of this lost city, clinging to fragments of evidence, chasing shadows across continents. Each discovery fuels the belief that Atlantis might not be a story after all, but a memory of something real. One of the most compelling theories locates Atlantis not in the distant Atlantic, but within the Mediterranean itself. The island of Santorini, once called Thera, erupted around 1600 BCE in one of the most violent volcanic events in human history. Entire cities were buried in ash, their frescoes preserved like Pompeii. The Minoan civilization, seafaring and wealthy, collapsed soon after. Could this be the memory that Plato reshaped into the myth of Atlantis? The concentric harbors, the sudden destruction, the echoes of grandeur. Everything aligns, yet still falls short of certainty. Other scholars point beyond the Mediterranean to the Atlantic itself. The Azores, a chain of volcanic islands in the mid-ocean, have long been suspected as fragments of Atlantis's peaks. Rising suddenly from deep ocean trenches, they are windswept, rugged, and ancient. Old maps sometimes showed land masses in the Atlantic that no longer exist, fueling the belief that something once stood there and has since been swallowed by the sea. Could these islands be the last breath of a lost continent? The Caribbean, too, has its claim. Divers off the coast of Bimini in the Bahamas discovered strange stone formations known as the Bimini Road, rectangular blocks laid out in a linear path beneath the shallow turquoise water. Some argue it is natural, the result of fractured limestone. Others insist it is man-made, the crumbling remains of an ancient pier or roadway. For believers, it is Atlantis's calling card, a clue deliberately left within reach of modern eyes. Perhaps the most startling claims come from beneath the ice. In Antarctica, satellite imagery has revealed shapes and anomalies buried under glaciers, sparking theories that the continent itself might once have been Atlantis before a shift in Earth crust. While mainstream science rejects the idea, the thought lingers. What if the city lies locked beneath miles of ice, frozen in time until the world is ready to see it? And then there are the whispers from the deep. Modern sonar mapping has revealed strange patterns on the ocean floor, rectangles, lines, and shapes that seem too regular to be natural. Off the coast of Spain, structures resembling walls and plazas appear beneath the waves. Near Cuba, vast geometric formations were detected at depths that no known civilization could have reached. Each time, the excitement flares, only to fade when evidence proves inconclusive. Still, the ocean floor is vast, and much of it remains unmapped. What lies in those dark trenches we have never seen? Beyond geology and archaeology, there are echoes in myth. Around the world, cultures tell stories of a great flood, of lands lost beneath the sea, of gods punishing humanity with water. From Mesopotamia's epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical story of Noah, from Hindu texts to Native American legends, the tale repeats. Are these simply coincidences, or do they preserve fragments of a shared memory, a catastrophe so great it scarred the collective human soul? If so, could Atlantis be the face of that memory, the name we gave to the first city that drowned? But Atlantis is not only about ruins and floods. Some theorists argue it represents knowledge, a golden age of technology far beyond its time. They claim the Atlanteans harnessed energy from crystals, mastered flight, or even bent the laws of physics. These claims, dismissed by science, live on in esoteric circles. To believers, Atlantis is not a lost city, but a lost wisdom, hidden until humanity is ready once more. Whether fact or fantasy, the idea carries a haunting allure, the dream that what we are is only a shadow of what we once were. And still, the skeptics remain. They argue that Atlantis is nothing more than Plato's invention, a story crafted to warn against pride and excess. They remind us that Plato never wrote history. He wrote philosophy, and his dialogues are filled with parables. They point to the lack of hard evidence, to the absence of ruins where ruins should be. And yet, even skeptics cannot dismiss the power of the tale. For why has it endured? Why does the world keep searching century after century if there is nothing there? Perhaps this is the true evidence. Not the stones beneath the sea, not the myths of floods, not the maps or the crystals, but the hunger of humanity itself. Atlantis is not merely a city, it is a mirror. It reflects our fears of destruction, our yearning for greatness, our need to believe that we are part of a story larger than ourselves. Whether Atlantis was real or not, it has already shaped history, pushing explorers across oceans, inspiring scientists, dreamers, and storytellers alike. In that sense, Atlantis exists, as real as the hunger in our hearts to find it. The search for Atlantis has always teetered between madness and revelation. For some, it is an obsession that consumes their lives. For others, a scientific curiosity. Yet there comes a moment in every searcher's journey when the lines blur, when logic and reason give way to something deeper, something primal. Atlantis ceases to be just a city beneath the waves. It becomes the question that haunts the human spirit. What if we once had it all and lost it? There are nights at sea when silence feels heavier than sound. The crew huddles around sonar screens, watching strange patterns flicker across their monitors. Shapes appear, too angular, too precise to be natural. The room holds its breath. Could this be it? The ruins of Atlantis, finally revealed? But just as quickly, the shapes dissolve, swallowed by interference, dismissed as tricks of the deep. The crew exhales, frustration etched into their faces. Yet the obsession deepens. For a moment, it felt possible. For a moment, Atlantis was there. But the ocean is a cruel keeper of secrets. Storms rise without warning. Waves tear at fragile equipment, and the deep swallows probes like toys. It is almost as if the sea itself resists being uncovered, as if Atlantis belongs to it and will not be shared. Scientists speak of logistics, engineers of technical failure, but the divers whisper differently. They say there are places where compasses spin, where machines die, where lights flicker out as if swallowed by a force older than time. The legends warn of this too. Plato wrote that Atlantis angered the gods, that hubris brought its downfall. Perhaps the curse lingers, guarding its ruins against discovery. In hushed tones, divers tell of hearing strange sounds in the abyss. Low hums, metallic echoes, vibrations that pulse through their bones. Is it seismic activity, the grinding of tectonic plates, or something else? Could these be the echoes of machines long buried, still humming beneath the sand? The climax builds not with certainty, but with layers of possibility. Each theory is like a shard of broken glass, alone, incomplete, but together forming a mosaic of something too large to ignore. The Minoans, the Azores, Bimini, Antarctica. None are perfect, yet none can be dismissed. Could it be that Atlantis was not one place, but many? A memory stitched together from multiple lost worlds, blended into one story that endures because it holds more truth than any single ruin could? But there is another possibility, more unsettling than all the rest. What if Atlantis was not only real, but advanced? What if they truly possessed technologies, sciences, or wisdom far ahead of their time? Some claim evidence of precision stonework across the world hints at techniques we cannot fully explain. The pyramids, the temples, the megaliths, all could be echoes of people who once knew more than we do now. If Atlantis was real, and if it fell, what exactly was lost? Imagine for a moment that Atlantis existed as Plato described, a naval power stretching across seas, a wealth unmatched, and knowledge beyond measure. Imagine if, beneath the Atlantic or Mediterranean, lies not just a ruin, but a time capsule, blueprints, tools, knowledge that could reshape our future. The thought electrifies and terrifies in equal measure. If found, would we use it wisely? Or would we repeat their mistakes, letting arrogance lead us to destruction once more? And so, the search becomes more than archaeology. It becomes prophecy. To find Atlantis is to hold a mirror to our own world. Rising seas, shifting climates, fragile empires. Are we not walking the same path? Plato's tale warns us that no civilization is too great to fall. And as storms grow stronger and oceans rise once more, the myth of Atlantis feels less like legend and more like a memory repeating itself. The climax comes here, in the convergence of myth, evidence, and reflection. Atlantis may be a ruin beneath the waves, or a metaphor carved into our imagination. But its presence is undeniable. The ocean is vast, but the human spirit is vaster still, forever chasing the truth hidden in the deep. And if Atlantis is ever found, the world will change in an instant. The sea is calm now. Its surface glitters under the sun, endless and unbroken, hiding everything beneath. To look at it, you would never imagine that entire civilizations might lie buried there. The ocean deceives with silence, keeping her secrets sealed under pressure, darkness, and time. And yet, when the waves crash against cliffs, when storms roar and lightning splits the sky, it feels as if the sea is speaking, reminding us that she has claimed empires before and will do so again. Legends, after all, never die. They live in whispers, in fragments, in the corners of our collective memory. Atlantis endures not because of ruins or relics, but because it feels like a story we already know, a warning, a reflection, a possibility. Whether it was Thera's eruption, the flooding of forgotten lands, or simply Plato's imagination, it has taken root in us. And in that root lies power, the power to shape how we see the world and ourselves. There are moments when divers return from the deep claiming they felt watched, moments when satellite images capture anomalies that vanish on re-examination. Coincidence, perhaps. Or perhaps Atlantis is not meant to be found. Not yet. What if its secret is not location, but lesson? A city drowned by pride and greed, swallowed by the sea, not to vanish, but to echo eternally until we are wise enough to hear. Standing at the edge of the shore, listening to the surf, you can almost imagine it. The sound of water rushing through marble streets, the glimmer of temples under sunlight, the laughter of a civilization certain of its permanence. Then the silence returns, broken only by waves. The city is gone, but the feeling remains. It presses on us like a weight, the uneasy truth that everything, no matter how mighty, can be lost. The ocean floor is littered with bones of empires, Phoenicia, Carthage, Rome, even our own cities one day. Atlantis is only the first name on a list that never ends. And perhaps that is why the myth endures. Because it isn't just about what lies beneath the sea. It is about us, our pride, our power, our fragility. Every wave against the shore is a reminder that what we build can be taken, that what we believe eternal can vanish in a night. So the mystery remains unsolved. The maps are incomplete, the evidence scattered, the theories contested. But the truth is this: Atlantis does not need to be found to be real. It already lives in our hunger, in our dreams, in the way we look at the horizon and wonder what lies beyond. Its ruins may be stone, or they may be metaphor, but either way, the city endures. Not beneath the waves, but within us. And so, we're left with silence once again. A silence broken only by the eternal rhythm of the sea. Atlantis may be waiting in the deep, or it may never have existed at all. But the search will continue, because in searching, we reveal something far more important than ruins. We reveal ourselves, the fragile, curious species that refuses to stop asking, what if? The ocean has fallen silent once more. The last echoes of Atlantis fade into the depths, and all that remains is the restless whisper of waves against the shore. Yet the mystery clings to us like salt on skin, refusing to let go. Perhaps that is its purpose, not to be solved in neat answers, but to live forever in questions. Questions that pull us back, again and again, to the edge of the unknown. For some, Atlantis is history waiting to be uncovered. For others, it is only myth. But for all of us, it is something more, a reflection of our own world, of the civilizations we build, and the fragility that lies beneath them. Each empire believes it will last forever. Each thinks the sea will never claim it. And yet, the tide rises, always waiting, always watching. Atlantis warns us that nothing is beyond the reach of time. So what do we do with this story? Do we dismiss it as myth, as so many have before? Or do we keep searching, diving deeper, pushing technology further, scanning every trench and shoreline? The decision is ours. The ocean holds her secrets, but she has never stopped us from looking. Perhaps one day, the ruins will emerge from the darkness, and the truth will rise with them. Until then, Atlantis lives in us, in our imagination, in our hunger for discovery, in our refusal to accept the limits of what we know. And that hunger is what drives humanity forward, to search, to question, to dream. That is why the legend will never die. It will outlast us, just as the ocean outlasts every shore. And now, the question turns to you. What do you believe? Was Atlantis real? A civilization swallowed by the sea? Was it only Plato's fable, crafted to teach humility? Or is it something else, something we cannot yet name, a memory too old to fade, a prophecy too urgent to ignore? The story endures because each of us carries our own answer, and together those answers keep the city alive. If you have felt the pull of this mystery, if you have seen the ocean and wondered what lies beneath, you are part of the story. Atlantis survives not only in myth, but in those who seek it, in those who refuse to stop asking. And in that way, the city has never truly been lost. It lives here now in us. So, before you leave these waters, pause for a moment. Listen to the tide. Let the weight of the mystery settle in your chest. Then carry it with you into your thoughts, into your conversations, into the questions you ask of the world. For mysteries like Atlantis are not solved by one person or one generation. They're solved by all of us, together across time. And if this journey has stirred something in you, if it has made you wonder, made you imagine, then let it live on. Share this story. Discuss it. Pass it forward, as it has been passed for thousands of years. Add your voice to the chorus that keeps Atlantis alive. For only when we keep speaking its name does the city remain more than just a myth. It becomes immortal. The ocean keeps her secrets. But you, watching now, you are part of the search. You are part of the mystery. And perhaps, one day, when the sea finally yields, it will not be explorers or scientists who bring Atlantis back, but all of us, together, who never stopped looking for it. Until then, the waves will whisper, the horizon will beckon, and the legend will live on.